Well, welcome everybody. For those who are new, I'm Jonathan Feldstein, president of the Genesis 123 Foundation. This is meant to be a informal briefing, the first of three that we're doing this week, to provide a personal perspective about what's going on here in the war. And while I'm going to give you some updates about things that have been going on to kind of frame the conversation, every day is going to be a little bit different. I certainly invite you to join the others that we'll send the links to afterward. But more significantly, even just share it if this is something that's informative and you like and think other people will like. I certainly encourage you to share it. I always don't want to forget all of this is under the auspices of the Genesis 123 Foundation, the nonprofit of which I am honored to be president. Definitely invite others. The other briefings will be very similar, more or less the same updates, but obviously with different people and different questions. And I truly open this to your questions here today. I know some of you, maybe all of you, have already sent questions in advance. I'm going to try to cover them, but you should feel free to ask any questions here today about anything that's on your mind. Today is 6 days since the beginning of Operation Rising Lion. It's 621 days since the Hamas attack and massacre in Israel on October 7th, and 53 hostages are still in captivity. There's so many things that I really would like to talk about, many great questions that have been posed in advance. And I'm hosting this to answer your questions, to answer the many slew of questions that I've received over the last period, 5, 6 days, to give you a personal hand on the pulse of what's going on in life here. I will potentially call some of you to join me live and ask questions and interact. I can't promise to do that with everybody, but everyone is definitely invited to use the Q&A feature here as liberally as possible. In, I hope, several to 10 minutes, I will cover a wide range of things. Maybe it'll go a little bit more than that, but then I really want to open it up. The purpose is for me to give you an overview, but then really dialogue about any issue. First, let me just frame where we are, what's happening today as we speak on Wednesday, the 18th of June, the sixth day of this war battle operation, focusing on Iran as one of the fronts in our ongoing existential war since 1948, 77 years. First, some general observations about things that maybe you don't know. Of course, unfortunately, the fighting is still going on in Gaza. We are still getting, although it's been much more muted in the last week, missiles coming in from Yemen, from the Houthis, largely the same missiles, and in some cases, more or less the same distance. That's why Israel's response to the Houthis in Yemen, the ability to operate there while not at the same level that we are currently operating in Iran, was an important example, test case, live model of what could and needed to be done. There are still soldiers being killed in Gaza, and yesterday, my oldest son, who's a reservist, went to the funeral of the stepbrother of one of his good friends. So it's still very personal, and we're forgetting the fact, because of the operation with Iran, that there are still soldiers fighting, there are still people being killed, there are still 53 hostages who are being held, most of whom are believed to be dead. We also need to underscore, even though it's intuitive, that it's an absolute war crime that Israeli civilians are being directly targeted, directly and deliberately targeted. The world is largely on mute. There's a gross double standard, I think, that as the world is looking on, at best acknowledging, as the German chancellor did this week, that Israel's doing their dirty work and suffering the losses as a consequence, but not really getting behind us. And even with muted criticism, I'm afraid that criticism, as this goes on, will continue. But the one thing that I have to say, and I want to emphasize as much as possible, it's stressful. I'm exhausted. There's a lot going on, but we are seeing God's protection. It's visible. it's remarkable, it's miraculous. It shouldn't be a surprise, but it's wonderful all the same. And we need to. I get the Hebrew word is chizuk, strength, encouragement from that, despite the fact that of everything that's going on. Let me give you several military updates. As you may know, Israel has gained control, if not over the airspace of all of Iran. We've seen images of Israel operating freely over Tehran with planes circling, and I read a report today or yesterday that now 24/7 there are planes operating over Iran on a 24/7 basis in order to take out the missile launchers, if not before, certainly immediately after they firing at us. On the first day, this is unbelievable. And I want to encourage you to go to the video for the webinar that we did yesterday. That was brought out. 200 military aircraft were operating more or less at the same time over the whole country, hitting multiple targets, requiring refueling and ground traffic, air traffic control, and everything that goes along with that, and every plane being maintained perfectly. 70 planes have been flying unhindered, as I mentioned earlier, over Tehran for 2.5 hours. And as of another report that just came out a little while ago, recently hitting another 50 targets, including missiles and missile launching sites. General targets have included Iran's international airport and Tehran, and additional airports in Hamadan and Tabriz, various nuclear facilities across the country have been hit as well, yet with the biggest to be hit, the Fordo plant, which is buried deep under a mountain. And there are conflicting reports as to whether Israel has the ability to take that out alone. And so, if so, what's the strategy? Because we don't have the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs, or potentially the ability to deliver it, though I've been told from people who know privately that, in fact, maybe we do. I don't know. The conversion facilities that are essential for building nuclear weapons, specifically Isfahan, have also been destroyed. The Iranian Air Force tactical base near Hamadan was targeted, destroying most of the Iranian Phantom jets. What was fascinating to me, and I didn't understand it when I first came on the news, I think 2 days ago, Israel Israel launched a 2,300 kilometer, that's a 1,400-mile attack on an Iranian airbase in Mashhad, which is in the far eastern corner, northeastern corner of Iran, attacking an airbase and a refueling plane where the plume of smoke just kept burning and burning. It wasn't just a plane, it was a plane that was full and ready to fly to try to keep Iranian planes in combat. Hundreds of ballistic missiles have been destroyed so far, as well as many of the launching sites. In contrast to what Iran did a year ago, April, and this past fall, when they launched hundreds of these missiles at us at any one time. Because of this, the attacks on Israel the last few days have consisted of only, and I say in quotes, a few dozen per attack rather than hundreds at any one time. And of course, that's thanks to the tremendous preparedness of the strikes against the missiles, the supplies, and the launchers. The production sites have also, missile production sites, have also been attacked, and that severely limits Iran's ability to produce more weapons. On Saturday, which is I guess the second full day of the operation, Israeli jets struck an underground storage tunnel. It may be the same one that the Iranians put a propaganda video out about, destroying surface-to-surface and cruise missiles while also continuing to target launchers. And it goes without saying that without the launchers, even if they have the missiles, they can't use them. So that's pretty significant. Israel has targeted assassinations of virtually all of the senior scientists and experts involved in advancing the Iranian regime's plan to obtain nuclear weapons, all of whom collectively and individually had decades of experience in such development. And that's one of the reasons, and I'll mention later, why it's so critical to completely obliterate the regime because they still have the experience, they still have the know-how. And if they can regroup, they will have the goal, no doubt, to try again. I think Islamic regime stripes don't quickly change. Israel eliminated the head of intelligence in Iran and his second in command, and there have been jokes flying all over that the military heads who have been killed and their successors have some of the shortest living, pun intended, I suppose, military careers in history. All of these. This all, and there's many more, and I can't go into all of them, and I'll explain why in a moment. But all of these are due to the really, truly remarkable intelligence that was gathered over years by the IDF and the Mossad. I alluded to the webinar that we hosted yesterday for Inspiration from Zion that's available on our YouTube channel and will be available on audio beginning Thursday this week. As one panelist noted, if it were presented, the whole operation as a Hollywood script, uh, just even as recent as 10 days ago, it would have been rejected as a ridiculous fantasy. But here's a strange analogy, which is one of the reasons why I'm having trouble keeping track of all of the military operations. You'll understand the concept of what I'm talking about. During times when Israel has been subject to waves of repeated terror attacks on a near daily basis, honestly, it's hard for me to keep up with how many people were killed, where it took place, who the other casualties were. It seems like this blur, like just so much happening. And now I'm having similar trouble keeping up with all of the military successes, which matter less than the cumulative impact that Israel continues to dominate and is continuing to operate freely over Iran, while we yet still have a very small number of casualties. Fortunately, thank God, and I'll talk about that, we've restored a level of deterrence that's perhaps unknown before. And I mean that unknown ever. That's a conversation we can have. We've slipped the noose of an imminent nuclear attack and threat looming over us off of our collective necks. And I feel that. I feel that peace. And as I mentioned, indeed, with all of the collective years of intelligence and planning that have taken place, we're seeing it's impossible not to see God's hand in all of this. And I'm happy to go deeper on that if anyone has questions. And I will say this, because of that, perhaps it's an article that I'm just now finishing to write. Perhaps that's one reason why, where we also saw tremendous miracles, tremendous military victory in 1967, this war isn't ending in 6 days. Today would be the sixth day, because I believe God, through this, is showing his divine might against one of the world's biggest, most tyrannous regimes, and their loss as a consequence needs to be that much greater before, and we'll talk about this again later, before, as he prophesies in Jeremiah 49, he sets up his throne in Elam, which is modern Iran. I want to talk a little bit about resilience and put that into perspective. We've been credited for a lot, and I think we have no alternative other than to be resilient. Otherwise, we would be a country of basket cases, and that's not to say that we aren't. We're all processing this, and I know, and I'll speak from personal experience, thrown off by the lack of sleep and disruption of our schedules. Almost every night, we're waking up with the threat of incoming missiles on our phones and the air raid sirens at least once. Last night was at 12:30 and I was able to fall back asleep, but then I woke up at 3 o'clock, stressed. And so I've basically been up since 3 o'clock. Again, I refer to it as being bleary-eyed in something that I wrote, and that got a lot of Israelis resonating and responding affirmatively. Right now, 24 Israelis have been killed, civilians, as I mentioned, hundreds injured, and somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 are now homeless as a result. There's been another huge wave of soldiers that's been called up to reserves to prepare for anything. And that could be on any of the other fronts. It could be domestically in terms of Palestinian Arab terrorism in Judea and Samaria, or trying to spill over. At the same time, we're not only witnessing, but playing an active part in one of the truly greatest moments in the history of the Jewish people in the state of Israel. My son was saying this the other day, my oldest son. He says it's sad. It's sad if you're Jew, Jewish and overseas because you're not really playing a part of this on the front line like we are. And it's exciting, but it's still very scary. There are many examples of resilience, but the one that struck me the most, and it's personal, and I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. I think it was 2 days ago when my daughter and son-in-law came over for a visit with my four grandsons. They're parents of four little boys who are under 7, and they have their hands full, no doubt. There's no school for my oldest grandson, no preschool programs for the others, and they have a baby at home, and everyone's at home. And I don't know how much distance learning anyone can do in first grade, but they're trying that. But they have to keep their kids occupied and their sanity to themselves. Their visit here, we're in the same town, was a way to get out, do a change of scenery, as they and tens of thousands of other young parents and parents of young children try to keep their sanity and their kids' lives as normal as possible. In a situation that couldn't be more abnormal, including putting all your kids to bed in one room when they know that that room is the bomb shelter, both to give them a sense of personal comfort, but also stress on themselves that if the siren goes off at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, that they don't have to quickly scurrying, even with four hands, get four kids into the bomb shelter together at the same time. I asked my daughter when they were leaving if they might come for Shabbat this week, to spend time here, to take a little more pressure off of them, a respite where we would also be looking out for their kids. And she told me something remarkable. She said, no, they needed to be home because they needed to keep a sense of normalcy, but they also have so many friends whose husbands have been called up into the army that they choose to be home in order to help them, those mothers who are home alone with their little kids, and be extra hands and occupying their kids. Remarkable. Just one example. Shabbat, I just alluded to Shabbat. I know a lot of Christians don't fully understand what we do and how we do Shabbat, but it's a complete day of rest. It's a day of unplugging from pretty much all electronics. Electronics. My phone is here next to me. Well, actually, we were told to leave the phones on. We didn't have the TV on. There are all kinds of things, and for another conversation in terms of how and what and why we do what we do on Shabbat as that day of rest. But as I mentioned, it's very unusual to have phones left on. It's unusual completely. But we were told to leave our phones on because the Homefront Command has now found a way, no surprise, to hack all of our phones to give us an early warning. It's not an app. It's not an SMS. It's something that they just hack into with this horrible, nasty noise that comes with it, so you can't escape that the fact that they're sending you a warning that you need to be aware of potential hazard and incoming radio. We don't leave the TV on, or we don't turn the TV on. We also don't leave radios on. So there's something remarkable that's here in Israel. They're called silent radio stations. I joke about, the best hits of nothing because there is no broadcasting. You put on a certain frequency and you hear nothing unless there are warnings in specific areas. And then an announcer breaks in and says, sirens in this community, in this community, in this community. And that is quite remarkable because some people don't have smartphones. So they're getting their information from these radios, but they don't want to leave the radios on, disrupting the peace of their Shabbat, the quietness of the day of rest. No worship services are allowed, and as of tomorrow, the criteria changes that we're allowed to have gatherings of up to 30 people. That will bring people back to smaller services, but the requirement is that you have to be in presence of a bomb shelter that can accommodate all the people and anyone else who goes out. There's a park across from my street, where on Saturday Shabbat afternoon is usually filled with kids and young parents with their kids, literally a handful, because everyone needs to be 90 seconds from their bomb shelter. What's the bomb shelter? Oh no, I'm not in it. I have a 2-floor apartment, but the floor right beneath me is the bedroom of my oldest son. That's our bomb shelter. It's built with steel reinforced concrete that's extra thick. a special door, a metal door, and a shutter across the window. I'm pointing because my window's right behind me. A steel shutter that closes so it keeps out, of course, the light, but any shrapnel or that might come in. However, shrapnel can still create an explosion, so we're advised to take the glass windows out of the window frame itself in order to prevent shattering of the glass while we're inside. My confession, I used to dismiss the bomb shelters. I found them to be a tremendous annoyance. Having to run downstairs, I thought it was silly, but now I'm taking it seriously. We've had multiple reports this week of people's lives being saved and protected because they were in their bomb shelter. I heard a radio interview with a man one night, 11:30 at night, I don't remember, when he was stuck inside his bomb shelter in a building that just took a direct hit, but he was saved. He couldn't get out, but he was having a live conversation. So I take the bomb shelters very seriously. We have two beds in there. We have a chair. We have water. We have energy bars. We have other snack foods. There's peanut butter and crackers. We've spent now as much as an hour, hour and a half in the bomb shelter at any one time. And one night this week, I don't remember when it is. My wife and I were home alone. We went down to the bomb shelter. I passed out. We were waking up, and I passed out on the bed, and she couldn't wake me and left me there. And I didn't come back up to my own room until about 3:30. There were potential calamities that were expected. We were well prepared, as I've indicated, but the expectation of an Iranian counterattack that would be significant was not insignificant. There were expectations of as many as 4,000 casualties in the first days and refrigerator trucks that were prepared in order to deal with the bodies while at war. There were many miracles, not just militarily. I will say this, that grocery shopping has become a hoarder's dream because while the Minister of the Economy went live today with news that no, everything is fine with production of food and specifically dairy products, and things are uninterrupted, people are still hoarding basic supplies, milk, eggs, things that they need for their kids in order to have sanity, snacks, chocolate, even to keep their kids. My grandson, my oldest grandson, was telling me about all the ice cream that they have in the freezer right now. And I just will speak for myself, unfortunately, but I'm sure I'm not alone. That's also gone along with a little bit of binge eating, and I'm guilty of that. Kind of hard to be losing weight during a war. But if that's my biggest problem, then I will accept that as just another one of the miracles. I mentioned parents. It's very hard. Remember, you're not just occupying your little kids. Of course, teenagers can take care of themselves, but they're home. No one's going out. So everyone's kind of home on top of each other. And normally, family being home together is a blessing, right? But when it's 24/7 and everyone is dealing with the different um, uh, realities of our situation in different ways, and the trauma is being demonstrated in different ways, it's not easy for anybody, particularly now if you're in a home where one of the parents has been called up to the army. So you've now got 50% support for 100% of your kids. You're also supposed to be, if you can, if your work hasn't been shut down, keep up with your work. Try to keep a sense of normalcy. I had an interview yesterday with a woman who I hope will be able to help me do some things that I need done. And she's got her three little kids. Her husband's called up and she's got her three little kids, and she's trying to eke out time when they're busy with other things and keep their lives normal. But it's not normal. It's very hard. The exhaustion is compounding. I'm unlucky in the sense that I haven't been able to fall back asleep most nights, but even if you do fall back asleep, it's exhausting. Putting kids to bed, as I mentioned with my daughter and son-in-law, is stressful. I found a quote that from a parent, I forget who, but I saved it. I wanted to share with you. I think it was a woman who wrote, "Personally, I'm very disoriented, literally feeling dizzy and confused. All the kids are at home. I'm managing their distance learning, which in of itself is a full-time job." Many people have lost their jobs. A friend of mine happens to be an Arab, a Bedouin Arab, is a private bus driver. There's no one to drive. The schools are not in session. Tourists are not here. He's got nowhere to drive, so he has no income for him and his wife and 7 children. And he's made an appeal for funds, which it's hard to help everybody. There's another economic impact that even if the Minister of Economy says things are okay, there are no imports because the airspace has been shut down. There are no exports. So that which we have, the prices are high, specifically produce. Since the war began, there's been a lot more importing of produce from other countries, and we're seeing prices high. And compounded with people not working, of course, if you have a job and they're paying you while you're not able to come to work, okay, you can get by. But people who run their own businesses and stores, for instance, yesterday I was in the Sunday, I was in the mall and I thought I could go in and pick up something, and I don't even know why the mall was open, except for a grocery store that's on the very bottom. There was literally nothing opened. So people are simply not working, and that's creating a ripple effect that you're now getting a sense that the economic impact is that much more significant. Casualties, thank God, have been low, but we can't diminish a single one of them. A Holocaust survivor was pulled out of alive out of the rubble of his building. A 6-day old baby, get it, was pulled out of the rubble of the building that the baby lived in with his parents alive. We thank God again for the miracles, but they're targeting civilians deliberately, and 24 people have been killed so far, and hundreds, as I mentioned earlier. And even if it's intuitive, it begs stating that we are providing warnings to evacuate areas in danger in Iran, as well as in Gaza, as well as in Lebanon, as well as in Yemen, and they're deliberately targeting our civilian population. Just a few more things, and I do want to encourage you, if you have questions, to use that. I'm not looking at them right now, but I will. The streets are empty. This is the first time I went out of the house, except for Friday morning when I went downstairs to the strip mall that's beneath my apartment to pick up food, not knowing, again, what food would be available, and seeing people doing the hoarding in the grocery store that's downstairs. Um, Sunday was the first time I ventured out, and honestly, I was a little nervous. The good news is there was no traffic. What could take me an hour or more to get into center of Jerusalem, and I live very close, took me under half an hour. The streets are empty. People are not on the streets. Seeing people on the streets is in and of itself jarring. As I mentioned, the malls are deserted. And I think what I felt on Friday when I actually went out, oh no, Friday afternoon, we went to I bought milk and eggs and things for my uh, grandchildren. When I went out Friday afternoon, I felt disoriented being out. And that was only one day into the operation. We're now 6. There's something remarkable happening in Iran, vis-a-vis Iran, historically and prophetically, that I want to begin to conclude my formal remarks with. Let's just rewind historically. About 2,500 years ago, King Cyrus freed the Jews, allowing us to come back and restore sovereignty here and rebuild the temple. And that's something that Persians have a great sense of pride in. And what's remarkable is that as much as that happened 2,500 or so years ago, today we are on the verge of helping modern Persia, Iran, to be free again. I think that's not only cool and hopeful, but it's also worth noting that this week, tomorrow, marks on the Hebrew calendar, the biblical calendar, the 23rd of the month of Sivan. Right now, we can talk about the fact that it's June 18th, but that's not significant in God's calendar. God's calendar is the biblical calendar, all of God's road signs and all of the prophecies and everything relating to significant events in the Bible took place according to the biblical calendar. It's on the 23rd of the month of Sivan that's the day that the Persian king 2,500 years ago issued a new edict overriding what he had already said to Haman, that he was going to allow the Jews to be slaughtered, telling the Jews that no, they can now go and defend themselves. That's significant, and that's significant that that's taking place this week, that anniversary. the beginning of the destruction of another genocidal Persian tyrant who wanted to kill all of the Jewish people. There aren't coincidences. We're seeing this week the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is the successor to Haman and the regime that openly calls for the genocide of the Jewish people, also beginning to fall. One of my favorite verses in Esther, and I'm going to be doing some writing about this. I don't want to tip my hand quite yet. Esther chapter 6, verse 13, where Haman is told, essentially, if Mordecai is a Jew and you've begun to fall, you will not win. And we see that happening today. Prophetically, I don't know if anyone in the world has ever spent so much time focusing on Jeremiah 49, verses 35 to 39. It's remarkable, and I'm reading, I want to read the text to you. What I discussed in the webinar yesterday, and I went and checked, there are only several prophecies in the whole Bible that are not related specifically to Israel, the land of Israel, and the Jewish people, right? Check it out. There are only several, an extended handful, if you will. This is one of them. This is specific to Elam, which is modern Iran. God says, verse 35, this is what I don't know the translation. This is what the Lord Almighty says. See, I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might. Their weapons, I'm going to destroy them, God's saying. I will bring against Elam the four winds from the four quarters of heaven. I will scatter them to the four winds, and there will not be a nation where Elam's exiles do not go. I can't speak to that specifically. We've seen an exile of Iranians since the revolution, and we're seeing that again now, where those who were able to get out. I will shatter Elam before their foes, verse 37, before those who want to kill them. I will bring disaster on them. Even my fierce anger, declares the Lord. That's powerful. God doesn't express his anger very often. He's got anger against Elam, and we're seeing that. I will pursue them with the sword until I have made an end of them. We don't have hatred against the Iranian people, right? It's the leaders, it's the mullahs, the ayatollahs. Verse 38, I will set my throne in Elam and destroy her kings and officials, declares the Lord. It's happening. Yet, and I pray for this, I will restore the fortunes of Elam in days to come, declares the Lord. It's powerful. Let it be. Let it be. What's in the end? What are we looking forward to? Clearly, we're not seeing this done in 6 days like in 1967. My belief personally is we need to end with a massive victory, a complete victory, not capitulation, not a ceasefire, not an agreement. No agreement with the Islamic regime can be trusted ever. Talks of ceasefire are not just silly but scary because if left in place under the same or a new version of the Islamic regime, they will simply try to rebuild everything, both in Iran and with their proxies that have been emaciated overseas. Iranians need to rise up against the regime, and I pray for that every day. This is the best, and it may be the last opportunity for the next 49 years that they have to take back their own country. It's a war that Israel's fighting for the US and for the world. We're seeing talk, ironically, about possibly Thursday, which is the day of the 23rd of Sivan, that the US might enter into this with its own air power or military power. And I pray for that. And I'll tell you what, it's not because Israel necessarily needs it. I want the world to realize that Iran, a nuclear Islamic regime of Iran, is a threat to the whole world. We're the canary in the coal mine. We are suffering the immediate consequences. But the world needs to step up and not just leave it to us and say, hey, give us a pat on the shoulder and say, hey, good job, guys. And that's the best we're getting so far. Many people have asked how they can help. Prayers, first and foremost. Keep praying. Okay? That is God's secret weapon. I believe that. I know you do as well. Donations, people have asked. This is not meant to be a pitch for Genesis 123, but we've done some remarkable things with our Israel Emergency Campaign, and I do invite you to go to genesis123.co and make a specific donation to the Israel Emergency Campaign, where we are targeting specific projects with the greatest impact and the highest integrity. There's a specific need right now for families of reservists. We're focusing on that for soldiers, for at-risk youth who are just suffering now 20 and a half months of this war and don't have a secure home in order to be in. And we've got a great organization along the Gaza border area that is taking significant action. And lastly, and as of a conversation I had yesterday with the girlfriend of good family friends who was left homeless as a result of that. Uh, we are also looking into see what we can do and how we can support the new 4,000 to 5,000 homeless. With that, I apologize. It went much longer than I had expected. I'm good to stay and take questions. I've invited, fortunately, Lyndon. We didn't need you during the opening part of that in order to step in for me in the event of an air raid siren, but I'm glad you're here. Let me quickly make you co-host, just in the event that before we finish now, there is a reason that I have to be absent. And you wanted to start off with some, first of all, my dear friend. Wow, it's just so good to see you, Pastor Lyndon Allen. Um, Thanks for being here. Thanks for your love and support. What's on your mind?
First and foremost, may the God of Israel continue to enthrall you with his peace for you, your family, the people in general. We here in the States who embrace the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we as believers in Jesus as Messiah, who comes from that land, we say, we're standing with you. We love you immensely. Two things come to mind. First Chronicles 21:1 speaks about an adversary against Israel, and that adversary is not flesh and blood. It's spiritual, and that spiritual adversary's name is Satan. It opens with, now Satan fighting against Israel. He has not stopped since he found out that Abraham will be the father of many nations and that Israel would be the salvation for the planet, the redemption plan for planet Earth. We're both waiting for Mashiach to come and rule from Jerusalem. So the redemption plan on planet Earth comes from Israel. And when Satan found that out, all hell broke loose, literally, against this nation. Secondarily, you brought up Persia, Elam. The book of Daniel reveals something fascinating on the spiritual side of things. Michael, the archangel, who's still on his job, by the way, who was still on his job, was resisted by the prince of Persia. Now, that is a spiritual reference to Satan, yet again, working through flesh and blood to resist the people of Israel. So when nation states are rising against your nation, there is only but one spiritual force behind that, and that's Satan himself. So our New Testament scriptures tell us this from the Apostle Paul: we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principality and spiritual wickedness in high places. And our prayer attack for the defense of your nation is definitely in the spiritual realm against that wicked force. I'm sad to hear that the Persians have not studied their history germane to Haman. It's unfortunate. Whatever you craft as a weapon against Israel, that weapon will be used against you. That has played out time and time again. We see that with Hitler, and you just don't do well stopping God's redemption plan for the planet. It just does not bode well. I
love the understatement.
I've got two questions for you.
By the way, before you do, just when you talk about studying Haman, I've been doing a lot of media interviews recently, and I have this fantasy, and excuse me, it is that the Iranian people will find where the supreme leader is and drag him out and hang him on one of the gallows that they're using to kill.
Wow.
Right? It would be however he goes is fine
Poetic
with me.
justice.
But I would like to see it at the hands of the Iranians, not an Israeli missile. But yeah, you had two questions.
First of which, in light of court of public opinion, and it sometimes begs credence, compare and contrast these two terms for me. Number one, the term retaliation versus preemptive strike.
Well, this retaliation is something that you know that happened to me in college when I started dating somebody who had broken up with the guy before, and the guy before slashed my car tires. That was retaliation. Retaliation is what you see that happens in gang fights. This is a preemptive attack, just like in 1967, for our survival. And I do believe, and I despite what certain pundits are saying, I do believe that we're that close to the Iranians having a nuclear weapon. And I saw that somebody posted a question that I may answer a little bit of now. Even not having a nuclear weapon, right, with the mushroom cloud,
Uh-huh.
just
Hmm.
putting nuclear material. I've seen. I probably find the picture. Look on the YouTube. We just videoized a picture of me with one of the missiles that's 11 meters long. They're powerful. They're huge. If they were to take out this much fuel and in its place put in it nuclear waste and lob it at Tel Aviv, the missile's going to go just as far and create a dirty bomb. These are existential. So
Hmm.
the preemptive strike is a military strategy. And I'll tell you this, and even, Lyndon, it's a good question, it's an important question. Even in Gaza, the word has been used about retaliation. No, it's not retaliation. It's it's correcting a failure that's been allowed to happen this long by allowing, whether it's Hamas in the Gaza case or the Iranian regime in the case that we're seeing now, to acquire the weapons and the ability to deliver these and attack and threaten the way they are. And sometimes it needs to happen in a way that is preemptive. And but never, I don't believe ever not true. That's not fair. I think probably, well, I will say that I was going to say I don't think ever Israel has operated from a perspective of retaliation. I think that there
Exactly.
no, I think that actually, if you read Ariel Sharon's biography, he may have done that with certain early operations against Jordanian and what they now call themselves Palestinian terror groups in the 1940s and 50s when he was helping to lead a new unit in the army. But I will also say that that's even if that was retaliation, it was also deterrence.
It's warranted. See, now in our perspective here in the States, in my circles, we view this as both and, that it's both retaliation, appropriate. I don't think retaliation is always associated with a negative connotation. Sometimes it's appropriate. If you harm my wife and you're about to do it again, I'm going to retaliate. If you've done it already once, once is enough. You do it again, I'm definitely going to retaliate. And if I think you're planning it, I'm going to preemptively come against you to deal with it. So here in the States, we're looking at as kind of both and. I mean, October 7th has Iran's fingerprints, the IRGC, their
Correct.
fingerprints all over it.
Correct.
The missile attack in Jerusalem, Iran's fingerprints all over that. And quite frankly, if they really cared about Jerusalem, they never would have attacked it.
Yeah.
They never would allow missiles to fly over it. That proved to me that kind of like Solomon's baby. All right, if it's really your baby, we're not
Yes.
gonna.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
but
we see that many times. They're
that's what
willing to
kept
split the
them on.
baby so we can't have it.
Exactly. So if they really cared about it, that really showed their hand. This is
No,
not your place. Jerusalem doesn't appear in your Quran,
no.
not even once. This is not your place. This belongs to the God of Israel.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's
But
a combination of the two, and that's what we're seeing here. That you're making that the state of Israel is making a calculated preemptive strike so that they don't use the nuclear weapons, and B, you hit us hard. It's the worst hit since World War II.
yeah.
It's the worst hit since World War II. No, you're going to have to pay a price for that.
Well,
And
that's why I say deterrence is critical. And by the way, deterrence is not just among the Arabs. I look at Turkey. Turkey has I think second biggest army in Europe. If you call Turkey Europe, Turkey is a NATO member, which it never should be. Turkey, the president of Turkey, has openly threatened Israel.
oh yes.
And I think that the president of Turkey, even though he's rattling his sabers right now, I think
Hmm.
that the president of Turkey would do well to sit this one out for the
Stand
rest of his
down.
life. Yep.
Stand down.
Uh,
Here's my second question
Wait,
for
before you do, Lyndon, Carol
you.
Berry is asking, excuse me, Lori is asking, what's the first scriptural reference you said?
Oh, First Chronicles 21:1.
Okay. Carol, Lori, if that wasn't the one you wanted to know, let us know. Go ahead. And then your second question.
Second question. We know that two administrations have financial tethers to the work, the insidious work of the IRGC. The Obama administration really coming up with with the
JCPOA.
JCPLA, and which is a farce, by the way. When you're dealing with an ideology that's willing to lie to you to advance their objectives, they'll sign anything so long as it means death to Israel. So the JCPLA was a fanciful document. Obama is behind that. Number two, Obama is also behind a pallet full of billions of dollars on his way out. So that's a financial tether. Iran was not financially capable to do what they've been doing for the last 15 years. And then the Biden administration, they lifted the designation of a terrorist organization off the Houthis. They lifted the Iran sanctions. So they too have a financial tether, sadly, to the occurrences of the last 10 to 15 years. My question is this: do the Israeli people view us as a whole being connected to this, or are they able to bifurcate and say, this part of the American population believes X and this part does not, we stand with them? How is it viewed there?
That's an excellent question. I don't know if there's been a formal survey on something like that, but I can say that if America was, excuse me, if Israel was the 51st state, polls here indicate that Israelis would that Israel would largely be a red state. I think that Israel looks at what Obama did in 2015, this summer, 10 years ago, which set up where we are now, right? We're only there because of the JCPOA rather than Obama. And you haven't met my friend. You need to. Jen Mallin's here, I see. She hosted Marzia Mirizadeh, a dear friend and partner. And Robert, I'm going to answer your question about Root and Branch, partner with our Root and Branch program, which I strongly encourage. So she was born in Iran and became a Christian in Iran in 1999 and was arrested and sentenced to death in Evin prison in 2009. And she was in prison when the Green Revolution began, and she saw the treachery of that. And she says that Iranians, I'm answering on the Iranian side first, Iranians view Obama's work as treasonous, if you will, if you can commit treason against someone else's country. But Israel recognizes that Israelis by and large recognize that you cannot negotiate with a terrorist regime that doesn't scream out death to America and death to Israel simply because it sounds like a good rhyme.
Exactly. How do you negotiate with someone that wants to see you dead?
You can't.
And so the land for peace strategy, we can now conclude is a failed strategy. We are literally back to 2005 or 2004, before you gave up Gaza. We're back to that. In a certain way, it's dismantled, but we can't go back to the status quo of the last 15 years.
Right. I will say this. That's why, but we still see the haters, and even though we know that what's happening in your streets and on the campuses and in public places and even certainly in left wing, but also right wing pundits that are not come across that are blatantly anti-Semitic, blatantly hostile to Israel. It's one of the reasons, and I'm not doing a theological litmus test on who here is of what faith, but it's all the more reason why you, as Christians, we need your back, because your voice and your prayers are so significant. But yeah, generally, Israel recognizes the distinction between the ideology of the administrations, and I would just go a step further. Many people here in Israel have said, and I'm not trying to get political, just for the honest evaluation, that
But how do we
God,
not? I mean, God
Well,
is a geopolitical God.
fine, but I just want to look at what the reality. Imagine if we were today with President Kamala Harris and Vice President,
Oh,
whatever his name is,
oh, I
right?
had such hopes for this conversation, Jonathan. Now
No.
you made my
No, but
stomach
it would have
turn.
been it would have been a disaster.
It would have been horrific.
She'd be standing out talking about getting a deal done, getting a deal done, getting a deal done, and not having, and certainly I feel confident in saying not part of the disinformation that was deliberately concocted in order to get the Iranians to believe that they still had some time.
I'm just so thankful that people of your ilk are in the land lending hope. Your article, ice cream with a top with a bomb on it, a bomb shelter on top,
Yeah.
ice cream with a bomb shelter on top. That was brilliantly written and really gives insight into
Yeah.
the ethos of the people. And
That was crazy, Lyndon. If anyone had
well
if
done.
people remind me, please, and I will send. If you haven't seen that article, I'll send it out to this group afterward. That took place when my grandchildren were here visiting, and we took the three oldest out for ice cream. Um, the between taking my grandchildren out for ice cream and the article being published was about 4 hours. The whole experience was so profound, and it's been very well received. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad to
gives
share.
insight to how we don't live this way.
Right.
We don't live this way. We will go to Jen and Jenny's or wherever ice cream, our favorite ice cream shop, and not even think about where's the closest bomb shelter.
No.
That is something that's incomprehensible for us here. That's why I want to stay in touch. And the Bible calls us to stay in touch with those who are in duress.
Correct.
For the cause.
It's a lovely evening here now. I could go out, have dinner, go out for a walk with my wife, and not have a second thought. It's a beautiful day, except for the fact that at any moment we could get a warning, in which gives us 90 seconds to take cover. And now more than ever, it's not like we're going to take cover under a stairwell. The bomb shelters matter, and we've seen that. Thank you
My
for
friend,
those.
this has been wonderful. As you know, I've got another call
You
at
got
2.
to go. I know. Thank
You
you.
are tremendous.
God bless you, my
One of the
friend.
people is asking about the Jeremiah passage.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer all of that. I also wanted to note, and Carol, thank you for your comment as well about retaliation versus preemptive strikes, different motive. That's a
Oh,
great,
that's a great distinction.
right? That's a great distinction. Thank you.
Great distinction.
Um,
Everyone have a blessed day. Shalom Aleichem.
Bye, Lyndon.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed is the God of Israel, the King of the universe. You guys have
Amen.
a blessed and safe evening.
Amen. Thank you, Lyndon.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to continue as long as you all have questions, and I welcome the questions. I want to quickly try to get to the ones, and Robert, thank you for yours. First of all, the chapter and verse, Jeremiah 49, verses 35 to 39. Okay, and different translations, but it's so powerful, and I think probably no people know that verse has never been Googled more now than probably ever since Jeremiah wrote it. Not that they had Google. So thank you for asking. It is early now, Robert, about our root and branch trip, which I just mentioned. I think I just saw Marzi texted us. You have to get to know my friend Marzi Amirizadeh. She's remarkable. Bring her to your churches, watch her on video, buy her books. This is not to be a plug, but I'm telling you anyway. I always find her so inspiring. Remember, I'm an Orthodox Jew. She's a Christian. She's an Iranian. I'm an Israeli. As somebody said, well, we should be enemies. We're not. We're closest of friends. We're partners on this amazing root and branch program to bring Christians to harvest olives here in October. And we're making plans. It's just hard right now. We're not actively promoting because it's very awkward, especially when the airspace is shut down to be talking about people buying tickets and coming. But that will happen. And even if it were happening tomorrow, Robert, I wouldn't hesitate to tell you to come, and that was proven what I've been saying. Where we're going to be harvesting the olives happens to be among the safest places because it's not targeted so much. You also ask, what are the chances that Iran has nukes and that they can create that they created before the war began and will try to deliver those to Israel? or the US by hand. Also, my thoughts on Iran's threats against the US by sleeper cells. The second part is very powerful. I am shocked, honestly, that we haven't seen any sleeper cells. I'm shocked that we haven't seen yet targets on Jewish community centers, synagogues, Israeli embassies. That hasn't happened yet, and I pray that it won't. But Iran is known for attacking soft targets. And I would be surprised, maybe if specifically if they realize that the game is over, that they don't unleash that to create the most havoc that they can. But those sleeper cells, whoever they've planted, and they've planted many, and I have no hesitation in saying that, will still be there. That's the problem, and we've allowed that. The chance that they had nukes before, I can't speak to that. I believe, look, I've always wondered, well, what if our intelligence is wrong? What if they already have it? What if we miss something? I think that we have reasonably good intelligence, and that was played out in terms of how we responded, how we acted this week with the preemptive attack and taking everything out. Do they have something that they can't deliver by 13-yard ballistic missile? Maybe. Could they deliver it on a truck or some other way? Well, they've lost access in Syria, which is one of the ground passages to come here. Nothing's impossible, but as I said earlier, Robert, I'm a little bit more concerned about a dirty bomb, right? A nuclear device would be a nuclear weapon would be terrible. Putting nuclear material on something, which is, by the way, one of the reasons Israel is being real careful in terms of what some of the targets are, because there could be a nuclear cloud depending on what we hit, because surely they have uranium enriched at 60% that isn't healthy for a single living being. So we need to be careful that they don't put that in some other way. Excellent question. Thank you for that. Lori, let's see, what's your question? I'm an American and feel that America should enter. Do you feel that that could get other countries involved, Russia, China? Anything's possible, Lori. I actually think, as I mentioned a few times, the deterrence is very significant. I think that deterrence, I think historians will write about this long past our lifetime. I said yesterday, I think on the webinar, and you were on it? Yeah. No, for those who were on it, I would love to be alive 50 years from now and be reading the history of what actually is happening in our faces, this remarkable historic moment. The good news is that we're going to have books published much quicker than we would from 50 years ago, from the Yom Kippur War, the Six-Day War. Could other countries get involved? Absolutely. The same, but the same is true. All those other countries have seen a level of deterrence and resolve that is, I think, since World War II, and I'm just speaking off the top of my head, never seen before, never seen since. And I think that's real significant. I think it's also a reason why America should get involved, because we have to maintain deterrence and make sure that China and Russia and Turkey and Qatar and Yemen, this little backward, impoverished country, should never ever think of raising a hand like this again. I hope that answers your question. Anyone else who has questions, please feel free. Jen, thank you for joining. As always, Marzi is fabulous. I'm glad I was able to make that introduction and you hosted her on your amazing program, Come Home with Jen on CTN, as long as I'm doing shameless plugs for friends. Check out Jen. I was one of the best times I've had doing an interview. Didn't even think I was on camera, just having a chat with a friend in front of bright lights and cameras. I love that. Jen, you also mentioned you were on a prayer call this morning with 1,000 participants praying specifically for U.S. leaders and administration to do the right thing. Lots of scriptures quoted for wisdom and to do the right thing for the time and season in which we live. Yeah, thank you for that. That's encouraging. If any of those 1,000 people or other ministries want to participate in any of these things, and not that I'm specifically bulleting out prayer points, but I certainly welcome to share this. And as I mentioned before, we have another one of these scheduled for tomorrow at 3 p.m. Israel time, which is a little early for most people in the Americas. And but I also want to focus on Asia. People in Asia have a lot of questions, and if you know someone in Asia, or anywhere east of Israel or south of Israel, in Africa, or even an hour or two behind us in Europe, I'm going to send out a notice to all of you again and really encourage you to share the link to tomorrow and Saturday night after Shabbat ends here in Israel. We'll be doing one that'll be 2 p.m. Eastern time, and that's already got quite a nice attendance. But by the way, for me, I wouldn't care. Initially, there were, I think, 7 or 8 people registered for this conversation. I wouldn't mind if it was only 7 or 8. These are important conversations, and I hope that you will all affirm that and reflect it. I just want to give a last call for questions. And as I said, and I mean it sincerely, about anything. You can ask me anything that I talked about, anything I didn't talk about. If you have another question afterward and want to send it to me, that's fine. If you want to join and let me know that you're joining and specifically want to ask that. One thing that I apologize, I would have loved to have you all come live, and that was sort of my intention. And so in the next um, briefings, I expect to maybe do a little bit more of that as well, to have people joining live and asking their questions. I also must have somebody just in case I'm sent to the bomb shelter to keep a conversation or at least prayers going. Okay, friends, thank you. And I don't say that generically. I mean that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day. You will get the link to this and feel free to share. And if I remember or if I don't remember, please remind me. You can Google it, the link, the article that Lyndon referred to, ice cream with a bomb shelter on top. That was in Town Hall and a few others. Robert, thank you for being here. Really great. I'm grateful that you're connected with us now, and we'll definitely look forward to you joining us here to pick some olives in October. Thank you all. God bless you, and we'll continue to pray for a good outcome.